Hello, everyone. This is Mark Hagiyama, and you are joining the Cancer Conquering community today. And I put out in our message that we're going to have a surprise guest, and it was a surprise because I didn't know who the guest was going to be until late yesterday. And I'll tell you the story about how everything evolved. We were supposed to have Rochelle Prosser, who is a nurse on as our speaker. And on Monday, she reached out to me and she says, I'm in the hospital and I'm going to be in here a while and I won't be able to speak on Thursday because I'm with somebody else in my hospital room." So I said, "Okay, I'll pray for you and hope you get better." And so she said, "Yeah, I think I've got somebody who would be interested in speaking for you." So she referred me to a lady named Nancy. And then Nancy messages me yesterday and says, "Hey, I was sick yesterday and not feeling well, and so I won't be able to speak." And I'm like, "Okay, that's not fun." So I started reaching out to so many people and to see about speaking. And at the end of the day, I was like, well, I'm gonna have to go back to plan B and figure out just, an open session and we'll have a topic. And then at the last minute, Amanda, and I'm so thankful to you, Amanda. She said, "Yeah, I'll speak." And for those of you who don't know her, she is absolutely phenomenal and just, we haven't met in person, but we've done a lot of things together and I always enjoy hearing you and you always have great things to say and you are just such a blessing and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. The last thing we actually did an interview with Amanda and her son Isaac. And if you haven't seen it, it's on my YouTube channel. And that was absolutely phenomenal. And he is a phenomenal young man. I mean, he had some answers that stunned both of us. I was like, wow. And, and she could talk about him because, uh, it has to do with our topic today. And it's about our support group and support groups and how important it is to a cancer journey. And so at this time, uh, I'd like to bring on our guest, Amanda Ferraro, who is just such a wonderful, wonderful person. Thank you again from the bottom of my heart for coming in at the last minute. And Amanda, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate you inviting me to come and speak. Um, yeah, survivorship is hard, and it looks different for everyone depending on the type of treatment you get, the kind of cancer you have, the surgeries, medication. But having a support system truly helps during a cancer journey. I mean, imagine being able to speak to someone who really understands what you're going through or has been there for you before. Seeing therapists are great and they do help out a lot, and your doctors are wonderful. But there's nothing like talking to somebody who completely understands what you're going through. A lot of the times when we're diagnosed with cancer, it's not our whole life stops and then you have to deal with cancer. And then when you're done, you pick up where you left off. You have to add cancer on top of everything else you have going on in your daily life. You're adding that onto everything. And then I feel like survivorship is when you could take that deep breath and be like, okay, I just got over that hump. Now, what's my next step? And that's usually the time that I think is so important for cancer survivors to really take that deep breath and to know that there are people that have been through it that can talk to you and discuss it. Knowing that you're not alone in what you're going through and in that journey, probably for me, has been the number one thing. I was a young mom when I was diagnosed. My son was 3. Um, One day I went to the ER and I ended up having to stay, switch hospitals, not going back home, and it was a lot for me. But I also felt like I'm the only person that has a young child going through this. I don't know what to say to him. I don't know if I'm going to die. How do I answer questions? What do I do about schoolwork? What do I, like all of the things that are going on in my head, to be able to have someone like a support group, people who understand what I'm going through, takes the burden off of you a lot more than people realize. Being able to just connect with people, it does something for the brain, for the psyche, and it's so very helpful. um Now, because of the support systems I had, I am volunteering with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society as a peer-to-peer connection support. So I talk to cancer patients who've had like my type of cancer, and I think that's wonderful. I love giving back to other people, but this community as well. Like, we're here, we've all had different types of cancers, but we're here together and we're sharing ideas and supporting one another, whether that is, sharing where to go apply for funds, or riding bikes, or, speaking gigs. We're a community, we're talking together, we're helping one another. And I just think that's so important, to have that, conversate that open conversation, that you can let your guard down, you could be yourself, but somebody understands what I'm going through. It's like no other. Would you agree, Mark?
Absolutely, Amanda. Let's talk more about your journey and how, because I think your story is incredible. And, some of the things you went through and the ambulance ride and things like that. Yeah, if you could talk
Yeah.
more about that and how your support group, you know, who was in your support group, main support group, and how they helped you cope with what you were going through.
Yeah. So, like I had said earlier, I went to the ER one night not knowing what was wrong with me. Honestly, I thought it was my heart. But I ended up having like a 5 hemoglobin. I was very, very sick. I was told I needed a consultation with oncology, so I kind of knew something wasn't right. Um, and then the next day, a doctor walked in. He was like, "You have leukemia, and we're going to start you on chemo." And he really didn't have a bedside manner, and I didn't really feel comfortable being there. So we ended up switching to another hospital, which was a task in itself. But then after going to another hospital, we were able to see exactly what type of cancer it was. I trusted those doctors. But when we found out how bad the leukemia was, they sent me to the National Cancer Institute here in New Jersey. So I ended up going from one hospital to another to another. But thank God, that was my support system. That was my mom looking out for me, getting a second opinion, making sure we knew what was going on. We felt comfortable with the doctors, making sure I was comfortable where I was being treated as well. That's really when my support had started. In the hospital ride, up the ambulance ride up to the hospital, my sister was with me in the car ride. We were just laughing and giggling, and I made videos and I made them turn the sirens on going in to the hospital, because I'm like, you know what? If I have to take this ambulance ride, I want to get my money's worth. Can you put on the lights, please? And I just had a smile from the beginning, because if you put a smile on your face, big things will happen. I'm a true believer, and you can change your attitude just by putting a smile on your face. So that's what I did. And when we met with the oncologist, he actually had my whole family come in to the hospital. So it was my mom, my stepdad, my dad, his girlfriend, my grandmother, my fiance, my son, my fiance's mom. We were in the room together finding out, this is what I had, this is what it looked like, this is what the regimen was going to be, this is what we anticipated, to how long I was going to be in the hospital. But from that minute from that diagnosis, that meeting, my whole support system was with me. They were in the discussion, they understood what the doctor was saying, and everyone heard it together. It wasn't like a telephone thing, we're doing this, we're doing that. It was, we were all there. And I'll never forget that. I don't think the way my doctor was able to incorporate my whole family was like such a game changer. That was a beautiful moment. Um, and then having like my son by my side, even though he was 3 years old, just, keeping me going. Your children are your life, and you really push for them. So always in the back of my head was, I need to be home for my baby. I need to be home. I'm doing this for him. And that was really a game changer again for me. Like, it was definitely my biggest motivation. But having my parents, my stepdad, my sister, my friends, we would have Zoom calls kind of like this, but one friend would like pretend they were doing a cooking show. So they would set their computer up like they were cooking and pretending they were like a chef, and I would watch them cook dinner. So I was, kind of talking with them, but it was kind of like we were just doing normal things. Um, I had a friend bring wigs in and like boa and hat. And we would do like songs and like karaoke, even though I was in the hospital. We would just have like girl chats where we'd have like a Friday night. We'd all join for an hour, and it was like little things like that that just kept me going throughout my hospital time. And it really made me realize like who was there for me and who wasn't. But the people who were there for me in such a big way. They let me cry, they let me scream, they let me yell, they let me be myself. They told me this sucked because it did. And they didn't say, like, oh, I knew somebody that had cancer, but they died, but you're going to be okay. No, it was like they were there for me, and they cried with me, and they were mad with me. And that was really huge. So I just, throughout my whole journey, the support, it I don't think if I had that support, like God forbid it happened again and I didn't have the same support, I don't know how I would get through it, because I was just able to cry and yell, and they were there for me. Like, no matter what I needed, they were there. And I think that speaks volumes to who they are, as well as just being able to fight with amazing people by my side. Like, knowing that they were there for me really helped so much.
How long ago was that? And then was your immediate support group always on the same page as you?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed May of 2017. I went through induction for consolidation therapies, was good for 7 months, 6.5 months, and then relapsed. So I had to go back in for induction chemo, then came home for 3 weeks, then went back into for stem cell transplant. So it was kind of like back to back to back for about 2.5 years. Well, a year and a half, about 2 years there, from 2000 May of 2017 to like November of 2018 when I had the stem cells. Which this year I will be 6 years post treatment on Thanksgiving. So what a blessing that is. November 28th. That's just, yeah, that's amazing. Definitely super thankful this year. um, yeah, but they were on the same page from the moment when the doctor brought us all in together and like had us all there. From that moment, everyone knew what it was going to be like, what I needed. My doctor and my mom got along really well, and we actually, the doctor gave us his cell phone number to text or call like if needed. um and we had his number, and yeah, we were just all on the same page, and I think that was so helpful. I didn't have to fight. I didn't have to hear people telling me to take garlic because that was good, or eat just bananas, or just do this kind of diet. It was really it was that, what do you need? And that's what I got, whatever I asked for.
What would you have done if one of your immediate support group wasn't on the same page as you?
Honestly, I probably would have told them that it's okay if you don't agree with something that I'm doing or the regimen that I'm choosing, but this is my body and this is my life. And if you can't support that, you don't have to stick around for that, and that's totally fine, and I completely understand. But yeah, it's my body and it's my choice. So, oh well.
That's a great answer, Amanda. I see the spirit that you have, and I've known this, since we've been connected. Your spirit is just so incredible. It really is. And talk about that aspect, how important your son played in having that spirit to fight.
Yeah. Well, anyone who's a parent knows like it's the biggest blessing and you'll do anything for your children. When I was first diagnosed, so a little bit of a backstory. My sister had brain cancer when she was 6 years old, and I was probably like 8. I watched my aunt had Ewing sarcoma. That was before I had my first brain surgery. So I was born with double pneumonia. My aunt ended up having Ewing sarcoma. Then a few months later, I ended up having my first brain surgery. Then my sister was diagnosed with brain cancer a year to the day after that. And then my grandfather died about 7 months later. So that time in my life was very, very difficult. But I learned that as a family, you could do anything together, and I learned how to rely on people and how to use them, um, just to love and to be yourself. And so when I was going through my cancer treatment, I used my son as my motivation. And I wanted to be there with him. And I wanted to be able to see him graduate college and walk down the aisle and be there for every boo boo and scrape and good test grade or bad breakup. I wanted to be there. And I used that as my motivation. And no matter what I did, I fought for him, and my family that as well, and they were, you got to fight for your son. And it was that constant reminder of like, yes, this stinks, but what are you doing it for? You can give up if you want to. That's totally fine if that's what you would like to do, but you're fighting for your son, so what do you want to do? And they were, I just, I don't think if I had him I would have fought as hard as I did. I really don't. He really was number one for me. I mean, as a parent, like, you would do anything for your children, and I was gonna fight tooth and nail so I could be there with him through everything. And it was really hard because he was only 3.5, so he didn't understand. It wasn't his fault. And he would call me up crying, and he would say, "I'm sorry for making a mess," or "I'm sorry for being bad," and they would cry and just beg me to come home, and he didn't really like understand what I was going through. But luckily he was a WWE fan, and after I relapsed after my second induction chemo, when I came home, it was October 22nd, which was Monday Night Raw. And that was the day that Roman Reigns, one of my son's favorite wrestlers, he announced that he relapsed with ALL, or no, CML, and that he had to relinquish his title, but he had to go fight leukemia. And he'll be back because he's strong. He'll be back. And for my 3-year old to see that, or actually, yeah, he was 4 at that time. So for my 4-year old to see that, he like kind of made the connection and it clicked in his head like, oh, other people get leukemia. Like, my hero has cancer, my mom has cancer, and she could do it, he could do it, and he's strong, so she must be strong. So he made that connection, which was like so amazing because I was able to then discuss with my 4-year-old what I was going through. I could talk to my friends and my family about what it felt like having cancer and pry to them about the pain and everything. But to be able to discuss it with a 4-year-old of feeling like, oh, mommy's back hurts really bad. I felt like I got suplexed from Roman Reigns, or I got Superman punched, or I got RKO'd, or just using wrestling terms to help my son kind of understand like what my pain level was or what I was going through. It was amazing for him as well as me because I was able to have open communication. Even though it was like WWE and it was wrestling, he understood that. And that changed the whole trajectory because instead of him being upset about my mom is going back to the hospital and now she has to go back in because she needs, well, he didn't know what a stem cell transplant was, but we told him it was just more medicine. So it was like more medicine and more medicine and more medicine. He was like, "Oh, okay, mommy. So you have to go there because you felt like you jumped off the top rope." And I was like, "Yeah, that's it." And everything, every pain, every step backwards I would have in my treatment, whether it be like bad numbers or extra day in the hospital, we chalked it up to something WWE. So then it wasn't a bad thing. It was like, oh, my mom felt like this, so Roman does that, so my mom has to do that, or a wrestler did that, so my mom could do that. And then we really were able to change it. And having that open communication, even though he was 4 years old, in like today's world where he's writing things in school and discussing cancer with teachers and other adults, or having open communication like with Mark when we had a Zoom meeting together, he's so poised and able to discuss what I went through, how that made him feel, um, what he would have changed about it, what he thinks we should change in the world for children that have cancer. That open communication came from WWE, something I never would have thought of. But I don't know. I just kids are just so resilient and amazing, and they truly they truly are just so magical. And he's my inspiration day in and day out.
Some of the most amazing interviews that I've done have been with not with the patient themselves, but with the people surrounding them, close family. And talk about, as you're going through your cancer journey, how it affects the people around you. Because there's so many aspects of cancer and it's a very, very complex situation. And there's so many aspects of it that are not talked about. And because, I've learned, recently actually, how long-term cancer patients have gotten PTSD. And so there's a lot of things
Yeah.
that we don't see that affect the people around us as well. So talk
Well,
about that.
yeah. I mean, it's when you're diagnosed with cancer, how hard it is and how difficult, and everything flashes before your eyes. And it's this whirlwind of emotional stress, anxiety, depression, bills. I mean, everything, comes into play. Having family members and loved ones that, are there to support you throughout everything is amazing. But from their point of view, like when I talk, I'm always saying like it wasn't just my cancer journey. Like, yes, I'm the one that was diagnosed with cancer, but my family went through it as well. They were there at the doctor's appointments. They felt, the money draining from the bank account because I needed treatment, and I had to pay for the medication that I needed. And, I discuss things like the gas it takes to get to your house to the doctor's appointments, and paying for parking, and the tolls it takes, and the good food that you're supposed to eat, the healthy stuff to make your body get back and nutritious after taking all of these poisons. And all of the money spent with that, and the anxiety and the stress, and all the doctor's appointments you have to go through, and making sure you're not mixing your medications and taking them when you're supposed to take your medications, and sitting at the hospital for hours or needing a blood transfusion. I mean, that is stress on a regular day. Can you imagine having cancer, or being the loved one to someone whose wife or husband has cancer, or being the child to a parent? That's like so stressful. And a lot of the times we don't think about the family that's behind the person that has cancer, or the loved ones, or the partners that are behind, like they go through it as well. I think there's a lot of stress and anxiety that goes into, being a caregiver or a supporter to someone that's diagnosed with cancer. And I don't think that there's enough resources for caregivers or family members as well. And I think 100% for me, my number one would have to be parents of children that are diagnosed with cancer. I think we really need to focus on that avenue first. Could you imagine watching your child go through, cancer treatment, and being poked and prodded and tests after losing hair and being in pain? And, that's just my mom went through it, and I saw my sister go through it, and I know how difficult that is and can be, and how stressful that whole situation is. But I think love is a whole different beast, and you will fight, and you will go through a lot of things that you don't need to endure, and a lot of things that you don't even see as being hard, because you love someone. And I think it's so powerful, a lot more powerful than we think it is, because people who have family members behind them, loved ones behind them, partners behind them, they're the ones who are really able to push through their treatment, and do it with a smile on their face. And I really honestly think that the caregivers and the supporters really need um, a pat on their back, because I know for me, if I didn't have the loving care of my family, I wouldn't be here today. And I can't imagine, you guys going through cancer without having the love of your family behind you, and, pushing through with the smile. How do you do that? So I think it's oh, thank you, Russ. I think it's so important to thank the family members and caregivers, and to make them know that, without them it would be a lot harder. And I think, from the cancer world itself, we're focused on beating it, and new medications. um without these people who have cancer, without their family members supporting them, they might not go to the hospital. They might not be able to be there. Like, we need to really make sure that we thank the caregivers as well, because it's so important.
That is so well said. I would like I would like to, if you wouldn't mind,
Oh,
Amanda, I want to bring Zach on. Zach, would you like, you don't want to chime in on that? We'd like to hear from you, and I know you're not shy.
I can't follow that. Hi, Amanda.
hey Zach, how are you? Oh,
I cannot follow that, man. That was incredible, and it is National Family Caregivers Month, and I think we need to put you on a poster board or
oh,
bulletin board or somewhere, and just rerun that whole word what you just said, and just the whole country needs to hear you. I can't add to that, Mark. I'm sorry. That was incredible, Amanda. You're
thank
spot
you.
on, and not just during the cancer journey, but even after it, right? I mean, at the end of the
Right.
day, uh, you know,
Your world changes. Everything changes,
Yeah, whether you succeeded or not,
right?
those caregivers are still there, and
Yeah,
we can't just leave them. We can't just leave them like, oh,
right.
good job, or oh,
They need
sorry, they're gone. And
resources.
then,
Yeah.
their caregivers go through a tremendous amount of grief as
Right.
well. So, and a lot of guilt and a lot of fatigue. But no, Amanda, that was beautiful. It was just fate that I came in right at this time. Sorry, I'm late.
I think we
Yeah.
should put that on a billboard in Times Square next year when we're at Perspectives on Cancer. There we go.
Yeah.
And man, I just want to say, I want to chime in and just say that what a blessing you are and how thoughtful you are about all the people around you. And I have found in my cancer journey, I think emotionally it's harder on especially the unknown. I mean, right now, like in my cancer journey, I'm floating through the unknown where the treatment is going on, but we don't know, is it working or not? And even though I'm a strong believer that God is taking care of things and he's not done with me yet, doesn't mean that more cancer is not going to show up and things aren't going to go in the way I wouldn't prefer. And so, it's really hard on my beautiful wife and my family, them not knowing. They like want to know today is what's happening, working, and, and so we just have to go through that time. But again, I think that people really underappreciate when people say they're praying for me. I say, you need to be praying for my beautiful wife because it's hard.
Yeah. I think we need resources for our family members too. I mean, we go to these conferences and it's like, oh, cancer patients and survivors and what we're doing and the resources we have for them, but like there let's take like my fiance. So he wasn't expecting me to get cancer. And then one night, randomly, our life's changing. I'm in the hospital, stayed in the hospital, didn't leave for 35 days. And then he's left with a child, the household, running everything in the matter of one day. And then me coming home and doctor's appointments and having food on the table and him having to run the whole entire household. And then what about like if like your wife is sick and then like all the kids in the sports and everything they're doing and mowing the grass and taking in the mail and doing the garbage, like everything that they have to do that's on their shoulders. Why isn't there resources for them and therapy for them as well? And it takes a village. It really does take a village. And I think that we need to make sure that caregivers are included in that and not just making up the whole village. We're forgetting about that.
Hmm.
Amen, Amanda. I'll share with the group. I'm going to Washington, D.C. next week. The National Alliance of Caregiving does a Caregiver Nation Summit. They do it every year, and this will be my first time going. And there'll be many of us, there'll be hundreds of us who are advocates who are getting together on day one just to be educated, raise awareness. And we cover everything from cancer included, everybody, children with disabilities, everyone. And then the second day, we go to the Hill, and we're going to
Wow.
scream and yell and wave flags and tell this country to wake up because we are unfortunately one of the worst countries in doing exactly what you're asking, Amanda.
Yeah,
We should be a little ashamed of ourselves, but I don't believe in that. I just believe in let's just do a better job. We need to do a better job. So well said.
I agree. Thank
I
you.
hope to have some good reports when I come back.
Hmm.
Good.
In fact, Zach, I'd like to bring you on this to talk about that experience if you wouldn't mind.
No, no, not at all. I have no idea what to expect. It's my first time going with my partner, Selma, who, both of us are really starting to move forward with helping employers do exactly what you're talking about, Amanda. We can't just
Wow.
throw it on society alone. We can't just throw it on the government alone. We do need to
Right.
also ask our employers to step up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Totally.
right. So some of them are. I mean, I was just the other day. I was talking to my son, we're expecting my third grandchild Thanksgiving Day, and
Oh, so
thank,
amazing.
thank you. Oh my goodness,
Congratulations.
fantastic. Um, he is getting 16 weeks paid as a paternal time.
Wow.
Now he works for
That's
Google,
amazing.
and they got deep pockets and they could do that. And I'm not asking for 12, 13 weeks. I'm asking let people take time off paid intermittently or when they can to take somebody with cancer to their appointments or takes a father who can't walk anymore in a wheelchair to their doctor's appointment. This is all we're asking for. We're not asking for the world. We're asking just do something in terms of the paid time off. Sorry, I'm on my soapbox. Here we go.
No, I completely get it. Like we're a nation of family and love and support, but show it as well. Like, how are you about love and support when I can't even bring my grandmother to the doctors because I have to work and there's no one to take care of her and it's so expensive to hire somebody and like yes, I totally agree. I think us right here can really make some change. I think Capitol Hill needs to hear from us totally.
Well, and I looked at the attendee list and the sponsor list, and there's a few pharmaceutical companies there, and they have no idea what's coming when they meet me because I
Good.
came from the pharmaceutical world, and I'm going to meet them and I'm going to thank them for being there, but I'm going to ask them, why are you here? Why
Good.
are you here? And it's exactly what you said, Amanda. I love that you're supporting. I love that you're funding this. But what are you doing with your employees? Are you showing them that you believe in this? And by the way, I wanted to share one more thing. God, aren't you sorry you asked me, Mark?
No.
Uh, I have a new word now instead of support. I love this. I'm going to reference. I don't know if those of you, Russ, I know you know Rachel Druckenmiller. Um, Rachel Druckenmiller is an amazing woman who talks about unmuting yourself, which I have no problem doing, as you can see. But um, she shared something last Sunday on a post that I stole from her. I told her I will, and use it in the caregiving world. But she uses the word shared strength, because some people don't want to feel supported. Some people don't want to. I've been strong all my life. I don't need you to support me, but yet I think shared strength kind of puts it into better perspective. Can I bring what I have to the table at work? Can you bring what you have as an employer and just help me continue to do what I'm doing?
Yeah.
I want to say one thing on that, Zach, and that is so true. I think as a person that was not going through cancer for all those years, I had no problem giving and supporting other people because I love to do that. The hardest thing for me is to accept help. And when people come to the table with that and offering, I have a good friend tomorrow just dropping off a pie at our house, people just doing things to help in little ways. I mean, that speaks volumes of people that just love you and want to be there and do something, right? And so I just think that that's so amazing, and it was the hardest thing for me, and I think God clunked me up and beside the head and said, "Listen, you can't do it by yourself. You can't do it financially by yourself." I have a cancer community. Now, my new venture, that's a weird word. My new journey here through stage 4 cancer as of this summer. Um, I just don't even know where it's going. Don't know what to do. And I have a cancer group here in Oregon called Kicking Cancer that has taken me on again and is doing a fundraiser to help me pay for medical expenses and life expenses. It gets expensive and it's hard. And when you can't really work like you did, I'm probably at a third of the capacity that I was working with my business. That really takes a chunk out of your life.
Hmm.
And so the fact that they're coming alongside of me and doing things, it means a lot, and so I'm just thankful for that.
Zach, let me chime in here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are for everybody? Because most people don't, some of the people don't know you here and what you've done with your book. And Zach is our caregiving expert, our shy caregiving expert. I always call him shy because he's like total opposite of that. But please share a little bit about that. And this conversation has morphed into something that we didn't expect, but it's really fantastic. So go ahead, Zach.
Thanks, Mark. I'm not shy. You're right, but I don't want to take time from others. But uh, just real quick, I like I said, like I mentioned, I grew up in the pharmaceutical world, but I was really raised and taught by my parents who were Greek immigrants, and they came into this country, and well, actually, they came to Canada in the 50s, and they came into this country in the 70s. And I grew up in the restaurant working with them from 13 years old. So they taught me work ethic. They taught me how to respect people and be appreciative, but also how to give back. It's not all about making money and doing things. So, oh, I worked in corporate America for many years, 23 years at Pfizer, and got a little sick of that and felt like I needed to do something more meaningful. And then I ran a home care business for 13 years with my wife. And that was very fulfilling and incredible. And then I sold that and took 2 years off to figure out what I really want to do when I grow up. And that's when I really explored this whole world of caregiver advocacy. And my partner, um, who's out in the West Coast, Selma, and we used to work together. She was a lawyer and I'm in HR. And we decided we want to write about this and do something about it. So we came up with a book, which changed its focus. It was just for caregivers, but we were like, you know what? I think we can make a bigger impact if we talk to employers, talk to HR, get them to kind of raise some awareness, get some empathy going, just to get a better understanding of the crisis. And so we wrote a book which shares a lot of eye-opening statistics, which since then have even gotten worse. Caregiver, 10,000 people are getting hitting the age of 65 every day. And by 2030, there'll be more older people than younger people in this country. So who's going to take care of our elderly or people with disabilities? So we decided to really start coming up with some things that we can really try to talk to employers about. We did our first, I guess, gig, you can call it, last month. We were invited by St. Gobain, have 130,000 employees all over the country. They manufacture houses, and they invited us to do a 1 hour webinar. Though we're not a webinar company, well, we were very honored to do that, and we spent an hour, and it was fantastic. The feedback, the leadership was involved. It was really good. We were giving away books, answering quizzes, and we got another one scheduled for next month. So one company at a time, guys. One company at a time. Maybe we can try to move the needle here and get some awareness.
That's amazing.
Thank you. Thanks, Amanda. You're amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Why don't we, I'm going to stop the recording now. Thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you for everybody's input. And
I
we're
have
going to
to go,
keep
but thank you so much for all the information today, Amanda. That's good. My wife was taking care of 5 children. Well, we both did when I was going through my 10-year battle, and everyone would ask, "How's George? How is Georgie? How is Georgie?" And I would have to stop him and say, "Hey, ask her how she's doing. She's now treating 6 kids because I couldn't work in many times." So this was great topic, and Zach, good for you, man. You're doing something that is very important. So, but I gotta get going. Thank you. See you next Thursday.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Bye,
Georges.
George.
We'll see you next week. I'm going to
Yep.
stop the recording now. Thank you for joining us on this recording
Thank you, George.
on our Cancer Conquering Community YouTube channel.
Bye, Russ.